right, Algebra Lesson 5. We're adding signed numbers, just meaning some combination of positive and negative numbers, and talking about absolute value, which is distance from zero. Okay, that's the definition of absolute value, distance from zero. And the sort of straight up and down, the straight vertical parentheses, that means absolute value. So just go through the practice problems here, should be pretty quick. The absolute value of -4 is saying how far from -4, or how far from 0 is -4, which should be 4, okay? If I think about it on a number line, if this is 0 and this is -4, absolute value is asking how far is that distance from -4 to 0. And the thing is, the distance from 0 is always going to be positive, right? Even though we're at -4 here, it's a distance of 4 between -4 and 0. Okay, so absolute value is always positive. I like to think of it as if a car starts on here on the number line, no matter if it drives this direction or this direction, it's always driving a positive distance, right? Cars can't drive a negative distance. So the distance from 0 to -4 is still 4, even though you end up at -4. It's still a distance of 4 that you're traveling, okay? Absolute value distance from 0. Absolute value 4 2/10 is just 4 2/10, right? Now here we have to pay attention to where the absolute value sign is. It's the absolute value of 10 minus 6. 10 minus 6 is 4. The absolute value of that is 4. But then the opposite of that is -4, right? Because this is outside of the absolute value signs. So it's going to be the opposite of the absolute value of 10 minus 6, which is going to be the opposite of 4, which is -4, okay? Letter D, -14 plus 6 is -8. The absolute value, so it's the opposite of the absolute value of -8. So that's the opposite of 8, right? Because the absolute value of -8 is 8. Okay, you have to pay attention to where these negative / opposite signs are, right? So the absolute value of -8 is 8. The opposite of that is -8. For E through G, if a number has a plus sign in front of it, that doesn't mean anything, right? It's implied that a number is positive unless there's a negative in front of it. So letter E is literally +3 plus +2, which of course is 5. F is -3 plus 2, which is -1. G is -5 plus 2 plus -3 plus 3. What I like to do is I like to combine my negatives, which is -8, and then combine my positives, which is +5, and then combine those, which would be -3. You could also go from left to right, say -5 plus 2 is -3, plus -3 is -6, plus 3 is -3. There's really two ways to do it. Go from left to right, or combine your positives and negatives, and then combine those. The easiest way to conceptualize adding positives and negatives, if I look at this right here, -8 plus 5, is to think about having 5 positives and 8 negatives, and then combining those together. And the key is that one positive will cancel out one negative, and then I'll be left with -3, right? One positive and one negative have sort of an equal strength, just opposite, so they will cancel each other out. So that's what you can, visualize when you're adding positives and negatives is 8 negatives combined with 5 positives. 5 of each will cancel out, but then I'll be left with 3 negatives. All right, that is Algebra Lesson 5.